Hey guys, Max 92 and welcome to another Wrap-Ups Bites. This is the third one. I've once again got six games I've finished since the last one that I wanted to talk about in some capacity. Most of them are games that were tryouts that I ended up finishing, but not all of them. So we're going to get into those here in a moment. But first up, if this is going out when I think it's going out, today, also, the second to last episode of Season 3 of Tryouts went up. So, next week, you'll be seeing the follow-up for Season 3. So, check that out and be here for next week, where you'll see that. Anyway, talking about these, got six games. I want to talk about them. First game here is Tengami. I played this one on Steam. It's been a while since I finished this one, so I mostly just have my notes to go off of. Tengami has a very cool pop-up book aesthetic. It's like Japanese art, but within like a pop-up book. It's very stylish and unique, and I really like that part about it. It's a pretty short point-and-click style puzzle game that has like a little narrative going, and it's relatively pleasant to play. As for like a bit of a negative that I have on my list here, it's just that it can feel a bit slow moving around in the game, which kind of just feels like a way to make the game take longer. They don't want you rushing through an already short game, I guess. Those sorts of things, limiting player movement like that, I feel like there's an issue with that in like flow for a game. So like, I put it on here as a negative, but that's really all I had to say about it. I do think that Tengami is interesting enough to check out, to recommend to people as like a little like artistic experience. If you're into those sorts of things, put this one on your list if you haven't already. The next game I got to talk about is one I got a physical copy of. This is Close to the Sun. I got this GameStop. This was one of my purchases when I was buying like cheap stuff while GameStop was doing some like major sale on pre-owned games. I picked up this one because it looked like BioShock. I did a tryout on it, so I've already talked about it to some capacity. I don't remember what I said in that tryout. That was a Season 2 tryout or something. I don't remember what I said about it, so we're just gonna go over the game. Isn't like BioShock, like in terms of like actual gameplay stuff. It's more of a walking sim horror, one of those sort of horror games where you just sort of walk around an environment for the most part and solve puzzles. It's very slow. You move super slow, and it makes the chase scenes especially annoying because like if you die, you gotta start them over and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know why it's so annoying to play, I guess, to be kind of rude. One of the cool things was that whoever owned this previously, they left in the little insert. And I think that I got like the game soundtrack or something through that. Or something, I don't remember. But that's not gonna be, that's just a fun fact about my physical copy. The biggest issue is that this game, like, it's one of those games that gave me motion sickness and light headaches to play through, and I did finish it. It's not worth playing overall, I don't think, unless you're really like interested in it. I don't really recommend it. I didn't really enjoy my time with it that much. Sort of a long, slow, somewhat painful, kind of annoying experience. And the next game I want to talk about today is Backbone. I played Backbone on the Xbox. I did a tryout on it, so you can check that out for my preliminary thoughts. I have since finished it, and the best thing about the game is its aesthetic, its visual style, its animations. That pixel art stuff is the best part of the game. The story is alright. The presentation is the best part of it. It's a very stylish game that I appreciate greatly in that regard. However, the game is kind of jank, especially when you're playing on a controller. I don't remember because it's been so long, the details, but that was something that I felt when I finished playing it. It wasn't, you know, the best experience to play on a controller. That might be alleviated if you're playing on PC with like a mouse and keyboard, but that was an issue. And then one of my other notes here just say cutscenes long nothing, which I think is talking about how like there's just cutscenes where nothing happens in them and they're long, but I don't remember all the details on that. So I'll just move on to my last point, which was the narrative gets pretty messy after Act 3, to the point where like choices start to feel like they don't really mean anything, which they don't, because the game has one ending. There's one ending to the game. And so, like, the narrative is fine overall, and the mystery is interesting to solve, but, like, it's all very scripted. Like, you can't really fail that situation because there's one ending to the game, and you will always end up at that place regardless of your path through it, which on this sort of narrative point-and-click style adventure game, it just sort of feels kind of lacking. My final take on it, though, is I think I can lightly recommend it. Like, don't go in expecting, like, the best point-and-click adventure you've ever played, but if you enjoy the visual style and you want to see more of that, and you want to, you know, dive into the world a little bit and learn more about its context and stuff like that, I'd say give it a check out. Check it out yourself if you're into the visuals, because I think that's the best part of the game. And if you can sort of deal with the gameplay side, the narrative is fine. It just sort of gets a bit messy pacing-wise, if I remember correctly, towards the end. The next game I want to talk about is a game I picked up on the Switch a while back called Time UFO. I picked up this game because I had started playing on the 3DS Nintendo Badge Arcade, and I wanted something in that sort of claw game realm, but I couldn't really find anything. And so I picked up this game because you play as like a literal UFO catcher, and I thought it might sort of scratch that itch a little bit, because Nintendo Badge Arcade is dangerous and full of microtransactions. You can spend real money to get fake claw machine prizes. But I'm not going to get distracted by talking about that. Time UFO is a really cute game. I appreciate, like, its art style, its music is all, like, really, like, nice to play along with. And it's the same, like, basic idea of a song, but depending on the context of the level you're playing on, it changes in sort of, like, tempo and instrumentation, which is really fun. If you're also someone who, for some reason, has picked up, like, a desire to play a claw game, this might help scratch that itch in some capacity, so you're not spending money on actual claw games. And, you know, it's really fun to see the more, like, experimental things that Nintendo does with, like, making newer IP. I haven't gotten around to all of the unique Nintendo IP that they made specifically while on the Switch. I think that it's really fun to see what the older companies of the industry are doing with their sort of talents. My conclusion is I definitely recommend it. Fun game, playable in 2-player co-op. If you like UFO catchers, check out Time UFO. The next game I want to talk about is, you probably can't read it, but Song of the Deep. This is a collector's edition that I got off of eBay. It came with a book and, like, an entire Steam copy of the game, because it has this digital soundtrack, but you can't, like, own the soundtrack to a game on Steam without the whole game, so it just gives you the entire game, the code that came in it. So I have it on Steam as well, but I played this version on the Xbox, and this game had a tryout a while ago. I had a physical copy originally, but it was in one of the stupid GameStop cases, so I replaced it with this, because those GameStop cases are bad. They're just bad, and I don't like them. But that's besides the point. So to describe it in as short as terms as possible, it's a submarine Metroidvania. I think that's a really cool idea, doing a Metroidvania-style game, but you're not, like, jumping and stuff. You're in a submarine navigating in the water, and it's not, like, the worst experience to navigate the water in this game. It's generally pretty nice to play. It's got a decent little story going on, and I like the whole vibe of it, and, you know, the only problem is that if you're someone who has a fear of the ocean in some capacity, you're deep in the ocean in a submarine in this game, and you have spooky sea creatures in some parts here and there, so that might be a bit too much for some people. But overall, the game is pretty alright. One of my major negatives is really just that, like, there's a lot of one-hit kill type situations in this game. It's kind of, like, excessive. There's a specific enemy type that will kill you in one hit, and its hitbox is weird, and it physically moves you to them. Like, I don't have footage to show, but it's got an animation where you'll just sort of, like, be floating along here, you'll get close enough to it, and you'll stop being in control of the thing, and your models will move together so that it can do the animation. It's really weird. And then there's just a lot of situations where you can just die in one hit, and it's like, those always feel bad as a player. That's a bit frustrating. I didn't quite 100% it, but I got pretty close. There's just like some treasures I didn't get, but I got all the achievements before I stopped playing. So I've 100% it in some capacity, but not like my file does not say 100% because I'm missing like 9 treasures or something. I just was like, I don't want to go around and try and do these because it's a pretty big map and the fast travel is lacking. There's only a handful of fast travel points and some areas are annoying to get back to, so I didn't bother actually 100%ing it. But I do think it is a pretty interesting game, and I do recommend it at like a basic level. If you're into Metroidvanias, you can handle the sea, and you want to check out a Metroidvania set with a submarine. And the last game I finished in this period is Deathmark, finally. This one I had to try out also. As you can tell, this is a PS4 game. I played it on the PS5. Deathmark is a really compelling horror mystery story, and it's got some really fun, spooky monster designs. I'll try to remember to capture some, put some of them in so you can see what they are. It's probably better to pick a copy up on PC. I don't remember if the PC copy is censored, but there is a censored CG in Deathmark. Just one. And it's in the sort of like extra post-game chapter 6, which is like, it might have been DLC for the game originally or something. I don't know exactly the situation of how this game released. It has 5 chapters and an epilogue for its main story, and then it has a 6th, the DLC chapter. And like I said, I think the mystery that it starts you off with and you solve throughout the thing is really compelling. And then the 6th DLC chapter is this really nice sort of like bringing back everyone from the first 5 chapters. I don't remember exactly how long in the future it's supposed to take place, but it takes like half the epilogue. So now that I finish this, I can go on to play NG, and I know that somewhere in the future, Deathmark 2 is coming out, which I'll probably do a tryout on when it comes out, because I've done the other 2 games in the Spirit Hunter series. I have a couple negatives, a couple weird things. The main negative that I have written down is that it has a handful of CGs that are a bit suggestive, that kind of feel out of place. They sort of come out of nowhere. I don't mind, but some people probably would like to know that stuff up front. The game is rated mature for partial nudity, but not everyone looks at the SRB rating. I think so. I figured I'd mention it here. There's, I think, at least one in most of the chapters. I know there's one in chapter 1, and I know there's ones in like 4, 5, and 6. I can't remember if 2 and 3 have any suggestive CGs in them. They're there. I don't mind them personally, but other people probably might. And one of those suggestive CGs got censored. One of the ones in the 6th chapter. I don't really know where I'm going with this. My other weird thing is that it doesn't have like a chapter select. So if you want to start from a specific chapter or anything, you need to make saves, specifically add all of those chapters yourself as you're playing through it a first time. And once you finish the game, it basically just loops you back to the start instead of like kicking you back to the main menu, which was kind of weird. It took me a little bit after finishing to be like, is it done, or is this an epilogue? And I realized eventually, okay, it just started the game over. That's weird. I don't know how much of this is like from it being a Vita game originally. Those are just some of the weird things. I do recommend Deathmark if you're into sort of horror visual novels. It's got a bit more gameplay than I think your typical visual novel does. It's got some point and click elements to it that really give you a lot more agency as a player. I've not played that many visual novels, so I don't actually know what is and isn't common in them. Of the ones I've played and the ones I've seen other people play, most of them don't have these sorts of things. The only one that I can think of that does have this sort of thing is like Danganronpa, which Danganronpa is a bit more involved in that manner than I think this is, but you know, that's where my comparison point would be. Anyway, I recommend it. Check it out if you're into that. That's all I have to say about that. I've been making an effort to finish games I started lately, so this took me a bit longer, but I actually finished a handful of tryout games that I tried out and passed. And I think even when I failed originally, because I had a physical copy, I decided to finish it. So I've been doing that, trying to finish games I started, and maybe you'll see more wrap-ups, more wrap-ups bites in the near future, because I'm making an effort to start, not just leave all of these games. I'm like, yeah, I started it and I liked it, and then don't finish it in any capacity. But I don't know. There are a couple, I think, that I didn't mention that were on this list. I don't even remember what they are for certain. But there are definitely some that I've finished since the last episode that I just didn't feel a need to write down for whatever reason. But yeah, that's really it. I don't have much else to say. I put these little conclusions at the end. I don't know that anyone ever even makes it this far. But I just like talking about video games, and that's it. Anyway, we're gonna end the video now. If you go to the description, find a beacons.ai link, take you to a place that's got my Patreon, Bandcamp, Redbubble, etc. The social links and all that stuff. Go down there, click those links, do what you do in those places. Like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't. Subscribe if you want to keep this and other shows. I do all sorts of things on this channel, and the only way you'll see them is if you subscribe or watch my channel regularly in some capacity, because that's how YouTube recommends things. So do that. Leave a comment. Have you played any of these games? Do you have any games that these remind you of? I don't know. Leave a comment. Share the video. Do the things. Anyway, thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye.